Hi everyone, welcome to the best recapped movie. Robert McCall, a former U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency agent who now works as a Lyft driver, tries to help people who face injustice in life. He suddenly faces the mysterious murder of his former and close friend and decides to take harsh revenge on her killers. Spoilers ahead. At first, Robert McCall disguised himself as a religious man, sat on a train 400 kilometers from Istanbul, watched a man, and followed him. When they meet at the bar, he tells him that he is looking for a father who kidnapped his daughter from her American mother just to hurt his ex-wife. The Turkish man realizes that he is the target, and when he learns of his intention, he orders his men to kill him. McCall starts turning on the timer of his watch very professionally and quickly kills them one after another without getting hurt. He approaches the Turkish man, who is very scared, sits in front of him and gives him a choice: pain that hurts and pain that changes. In Boston, Grace, the mother of the kidnapped girl, rushes to her lawyer's office and hugs her little girl. Her lawyer tells her it is unclear how she was saved because an unknown person handed her over 45 minutes ago. McCall, who works as a Lyft driver, accepts to transport one of his regular customers, an older man named Sam, who has been involved in a long-running case to find his missing sister. After greeting his neighbor Fatima, who is gardening, McCall returns home, picks up a package from the front door, and enters. He studies and finishes a book, then kisses his ring in memory of his wife. In Belgium, a man named Calbert enters his house and sees his wife beaten and crying, and at the same time, three men named Resnick, Ari, and Kovac appear and shoot his wife in the head. Resnick plans to kill Calbert as well, staging his death as a suicide while explaining to him that he has to kill the names given to him, that's all. He is also killed, and after that, we see McCall going to the bookstore to pick up the book he ordered. It turns out that Grace is the owner of the bookstore and he asks her daughter not to reveal anything, then happily leaves the bookstore. One night he picks up a girl passenger in Lyft who appears to have been drugged and raped, and after McCall stops the car, he realizes she is in a lot of pain. He takes her to the hospital, returns to the apartment of the people who harassed her, and enters their house under the pretext of not taking her money. The head of the group gives him his bank card but soon realizes that McCall is aware of everything, and he is back because of that girl, so he locks the door to beat him up. McCall sets the timer on his watch and punishes them all in the worst way possible out of revenge for that girl, and when he looks at his watch, only 29 seconds passed. He asks the person who brought her down to call the police, tell them everything that happened tonight, and make sure he gives him a 5-star. He returns home and finds his best friend Susan Plummer, who is now working at the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency and who seems to have brought him soup for dinner. McCall tells a memory from the past about his wife, who passed away, and they get a little sad. When they go out for a walk, Susan offers him to return to the organization so that he can maybe fill the hole in his heart, then they say goodbye. The next day, when he returns home, he sees that his neighbor Fatima's garden has been severely damaged, and the walls have been splashed with graffiti. As he cleans the wall, Miles Whitaker, the boy next door, tells him it is not his job, but McCall says there is no way because it costs too much to paint it. Miles, who claims to be an artist, agrees to do it for $350, still, again, he refuses, and finally, after a few hours, since Miles is interested in making money, he agrees to repair the wall for $250. McCall also agrees to settle the contract with him in cash provided that he does it after school. Susan is talking to her colleague Dave York about Calbert's murder. As her husband Brian prepares to go to Brussels with her, Susan asks Dave to prevent people from entering the scene of the murder until she arrives, because she is going to check everything. McCall and Sam are talking on the beach, and Sam informs him about his missing sister and that the judge won't accept his evidence to prove it. After that, before Susan and Brian travel to Brussels, he asks Susan to send him information about a case by giving her some documents. The next day, McCall ensures that Miles does what he says, repairing the walls, and Fatima takes care of her flowers. Susan goes to the place of the murder, and after visiting there, she and Dave return to the hotel and take the elevator. Still, as soon as she enters her room, she is attacked by two thugs. It seems that they are looking for money, and Susan doesn't give up easily and fights them well, but unfortunately, after a fight, Susan gets tired, and they lock her in a room. McCall is watching Miles paint the wall, peeking into his art book and seeing his beautiful drawings. He asks about his signature, and Miles explains that it's his brother, who was a boxer, and speaks sadly of his brother's death when he came back from the gym and just wanted his bag back. At this moment, McCall receives a call from Brian, who seems to inform him of Susan's death, and McCall secretly attends her funeral. Brian explains that, according to the police, it happened because of a robbery. Still, he believes that Susan never used jewelry. After showing him her ring, he says the organization would do everything possible for her. They are working with the international police to find her killer. After he gets home, McCall takes a look at the evidence left by Suzanne so that he might be able to find a clue about her killers. On the other hand, in Brussels, two young men who took drugs and seem to be Suzanne's killers receive a call, and immediately after they answer, the radio explodes and both are suspiciously killed by Resnick, Ari, and Kovac. After a deeper look at the evidence and CCTV footage, McCall realizes something and goes to Washington to meet his old colleague Dave. He calls him during morning exercise, and Dave is shocked to see him. They hug each other because until now, he thought that he was killed in the bombing incident. Dave doesn't believe that he survived the bombing incident in hotel, and he gets a little upset and says, "I haven't hidden anything from you in 7 years of cooperation." However, McCall says, "I'm sorry." After talking a little about their cooperation in the past, McCall says that after watching the footage of the cameras, he realized that Susan never hit the floor button and that they, who had a backpack, did this. He says they knew for sure which floor she was on and killed her knowingly. Dave says that he was able to find evidence from them, but suddenly, both of them were killed in their building, and it was obviously someone's job to destroy the clues. McCall shows him the autopsy report and says that the killer killed Suzanne in a trained manner and that he couldn't have been a thief, it's something else. Then Dave promises him to do whatever it takes to find the killer. At home he sees that Miles's friends are not good boys. On the other hand, he is all focused on Suzanne, so he looks at the Calbert murder case, and by visualizing the crime scenes in his mind, he realizes something. He calls Dave and says that Calbert was killed by a right-hander. In contrast, his wife was killed by a left-hander, and he guesses that since Susan was following up on the murder, there is a connection between the two murders. After this call, McCall goes to find Miles because that there is no news from him, and while Miles is hanging out with the gang and taking drugs, they ask him to go and kill and avenge his brother. McCall immediately walks in and asks Miles to leave the room, and as he steps down from the elevator, he says, "Is that what you really wanted?" Miles says that painting doesn't earn him money, and he can't pay for his mother's living expenses. McCall says, "Now that you'll be a killer, start with me," and he tries to impress him.
Start with me. No, start with me. Come on, gangster. Man ain't spelled G-U-N, son. Oh, no. Killer, oh, what no. You see, oh, yummy? No. Oh, no. You don't know. Oh, no. You have no idea what death is.
While he is cooking, the radio announces that a storm is coming, and Miles knocks on the door and informs him that he has finished painting the wall. He joins him for a drink, and after some talk, it's agreed that Miles will repair and paint part of McCall's kitchen wall. While working, McCall accepts a suspicious passenger and realizes he is not an ordinary passenger. Immediately after that person attacks him with a knife, but McCall prevents this by upsetting the balance of the car, and the fight continues. He does until he kills him. He takes out his mobile phone, sets the car on fire, and goes to Dave as if waiting for something. While Dave is spending time with his wife and daughter, he joins them, and after Dave introduces him to his wife, they sit down to talk as they leave the room. He gives Dave the phone of the person who came to kill him the day before and tells him to check it, but when he calls it, it becomes clear that the source is Dave's phone.
Tell me I'm wrong, Dave.
Dave is forced to confess and says that 3 months after you disappeared, the organization shut down our department, and they were forced into an unpleasant business where they got good money in exchange for killing names. He admits that Susan was unlucky because she only knew that Calbert was a secret member of the organization, so he had to kill her. Dave asks him to ignore this story. Still, McCall says he can't ignore this issue and that they must pay back. After a little talk, Dave blames the organization for all of this, which causes them to be unemployed. McCall understands that he does not do things alone, but all the members of the group, who are all trained by him, are guilty of Susan's murder. When he sees them, he warns them that they will be punished for this and that he will kill them all. Dave's wife arrives, and McCall asks her to take him on her way. After that, while Resnick and Ari are conspiring to kill Brian, luckily McCall is there before them and saves Brian, takes him to a motel, and tells him that the people who killed Susan are planning to kill him too. While Miles is painting the walls in the kitchen, McCall calls him and asks Miles to check outside after hearing the barking dogs. Miles sees someone bringing pizza, but a little later, McCall sees the cameras and realizes that Dave and Kovac are entering the house, so he asks Miles to immediately go to the library and enter the secret room by pressing a button behind one of the books. By entering there, Miles sees McCall's military uniform and is surprised. However, he asks him to be quiet so that Dave doesn't notice his presence. When Dave sees no one is home, he becomes suspicious of the mirror next to the library. He decides to shoot, but at the same moment, McCall stops him by calling him and tells him that he is not supposed to be there and that he knows where to find him. Dave goes to the bedroom, and looking at the ceiling, he realizes that McCall has gone to his old house by the sea and pretends to leave it. When Miles is sure they are leaving, he comes out, but a little later, he gets caught in Dave's trap, and they take him. The police are evacuating the coastal town, but McCall gets a pass by showing his badge. As soon as he arrives, he parks the car safely and waits for Dave and his men to arrive. On the other hand, Dave arrives there and shows them his wife's bakery. After getting off, they decide to attack McCall's house, and Dave himself goes to the lookout so that he can shoot with a sniper from above. First, Kovac enters and sees a sewing machine that suddenly turns on and loses his concentration due to distraction and is fatally shot by McCall. Ari confirms his death and continues to try to find him with Resnick as the rain pours heavily. Ari enters an alley where Suzanne's photos are stuck to the wall. Suddenly, McCall comes and kills him terribly with 2 knives. Resnick informs Dave that Ari is also killed, and shortly after, McCall shoots an electric pole and runs into another alley to disturb Dave's shooting. Following the trail of blood, Resnick realizes that he escaped to the bakery, and McCall, with a pre-planned plan, tears open the bags and turns on the fan. When Resnick gets there, he throws a grenade into the house, which causes it to explode. Dave tries to shoot McCall by following him, but he fails, and when he calls Resnick, he doesn't get an answer, and he is sure that he is also killed. Now alone, Dave injures Miles, who was left in the trunk of the car after several shots at the car, and then warns McCall that if he shows himself, he will shoot him and kill the kid. With McCall's good performance, his shot misses, and a little later, due to strong wind, electric wires hit Dave and threw him. When he gets up, he shouts angrily and says, "Where are you?" McCall, who raised himself to the top of the tower, engages with Dave and disarms him, and during the struggle, he pokes his finger in his eye. Using this surprise, he takes the knife and kills Dave after several blows to different parts of his body by cutting his neck and throws him down from the top of the tower. He frees Miles and takes him to his old home to treat Miles's gunshot leg wound and stop the bleeding. After that, he looks at an old photo of himself with his wife, Vivian, and when he sits down, he picks up and touches the glasses that seem to belong to his wife and asks Miles to join him. We see Miles showing his girlfriend his drawing of a superhero while going to school. When Fatima returns home, she finds that her garden has been restored, and a mural has been painted on the wall by Miles, a reminder of her life in her former country. After a long time, Sam sees his sister, whom he has been waiting to find for years, and happily hugs her. It is clear that this also happened, thanks to McCall. At the movie's end, when the sea is calmed down, McCall kisses the ring that is a souvenir of his wife, and it seems that he has now calmed down a little by taking revenge for the death of his close friend Suzanne. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel.